Hey guys, today I'm going to talk to you about a position that I really love, and I think that everyone that's learning jiu-jitsu needs to learn this position. I believe closed guard and collar sleeve are two of the most important positions in jiu-jitsu. Closed guard being the most important for open guard, right? Because with collar sleeve, you're able to chain in so many submission attacks. You're able to chain in so many leg attacks. Everything stems in open guard from collar sleeve. I feel like the concepts that I'm going to explain in this series are going to significantly change your look about collar sleeve. It's going to change your opinion on the scissor sweep. It's going to change your whole approach to many, many different things. I'm going to discuss many different rules that we learned in De La Riva. We learned in De La Riva many rules about posting. Just to recap, if you don't know these rules of posting, I'll be explaining them in this series. But I would really like it if you watch the De La Riva segment and learn those rules from there as well. Because what I always say about jiu-jitsu, there's really no guards in jiu-jitsu anymore. There's really no positions. These positions are all stemmed on rules of the body. How the rules of the hand, the elbow, the shoulder, the knees, the ankles. And I'm going to keep giving you guys more and more of these rules. But basically, what I showed in the De La Riva segment was the rules of posting. Every time I post my arm, my shoulder is back. And then we learned in the De La Riva segment how when we pull the shoulder forward, we lose the pressure of our weight on our palm, misaligning, which we're going to learn in this series a lot. Misalignment of my elbow and shoulder compromise my elbow. Now we can sweep the person, making their shoulder post. But what we didn't learn in De La Riva was the concept of elbow connection to the body. We learned about the arm being straight. In collar sleeve, we're going to learn all about the arm being bent. Me flexing my arm and bending my arm. You're going to learn in this series there's two worlds to the arm being bent. One is when the weight's on the forearm. When the weight's on the forearm, you're going to notice it's easier to remove the elbow connection from the body because when my weight's on the forearm, I'm pressing here. It's easy to remove my elbow, opposed to when my weight's on my elbow. And then once the weight's on the elbow, you're going to learn many different concepts of closing the elbow, bringing the forearm to the chest, opening the elbow. There's going to be many different body rules that we're going to learn that are going to be so applicable everywhere, guys. That's what the beautiful thing is about jiu-jitsu. You're learning this now, but you're going to be able to do this from all the different guards. Butterfly guard, closed guard, all the different guards. So this DVD isn't just a DVD on a position, it's a DVD on jiu-jitsu in general. The broadness of these concepts are applicable everywhere. That's what I keep trying to explain in this series. I'm going to teach you in this series many aspects of even as there's a segment on grip breaking that you're going to find very, very interesting. But again, it's going to be the same rule that I just talked about right now. Whenever my arm is bent, we learned all the rules of posting, but whenever my arm is bent, my strength is going to be when my elbow is aligned with my shoulder. My hand, elbow, and shoulder are all in alignment. What we're going to see is whenever we're able to misalign something, or we're able to move my elbow off the person's body just a little bit to create a wedge, this wedge will stop us from closing our arm. What does that mean? My arm has to remain on my forearm because I can't close my elbow. That means that when my arm's on my forearm, we can straighten the arm again. It's funny because in De La Riva, we learned with a straight arm how to bend somebody's arm. In this series, we're going to actually learn how when the arm's bent to straighten the arm. But then we're going to also learn when the arm's bent all these cool things that we can do, such as sweeping the opponent, such as bringing the person back. We're going to learn a new concept in this series about submission exposure versus sweep exposure. How the two are directly correlated. Just like in De La Riva, we learned back exposure versus sweep exposure. The concepts in this series, I personally love. It's so much fun for me to even talk about them. You're going to learn a modified collar sleeve in this series as well. I'm going to give you 3 ways to play collar sleeve. And all 3 ways will be completely viable when you're doing your approaches to collar sleeve. You're going to learn how I like to do the scissor sweep, and it's going to be a little different than how I've seen many instructors teach the scissor sweep and collar sweep. I believe that this method that you guys are going to learn in this series is going to be so efficient in your development in your game because you're never going to be having to force anything. You're going to learn in this series what an omoplata is and what a triangle is and how they're almost identical. Just one slight difference in what's in your lap. In a triangle, the opponent's shoulder falls into your lap when we're going for a triangle. When the elbow falls into your lap, you have an omoplata. Okay? Once we finish the triangle, we remove the shoulder from the body, of course. But when we initially set up a triangle, we typically will have the shoulder inside our body. Okay? These small things are going to change you so much, your concept of jiu-jitsu, because when you're doing a triangle also, my head is aligned with my opponent. Initially, again, we make our angle, of course, we're going to remove the shoulder for us to finish a triangle. But initially, our head is aligned with our opponent. When we start attacking with our head aligned with the opponent and they put weight forward, we're able to misalign their body. Again, we're going to be discussing many different rules of the cross collar grip that we discussed a lot in the De La Riva series. One being the collar grip being a frame that she comes into. It's hard for her to go into me because of the collarbone. Another, spine misalignment, making her look the other way than her body. Every time her head is a different way than her body, submission exposure, sweep exposure, the rules of balance will be applicable. The rules of balance you're going to learn in this series are going to be so important in anything with the person on their knees. But they're identical to when the person's standing because we learned the rules of balance in standing in De La Riva, right? Now we're going to learn the rules of balance when the person's on their knees. And it's literally identical, closing the elbow. Just some different key elements versus posting. Again, posting. What does posting mean? Posting means some of your weight is off of your legs and on your upper body. Every time there's weight on my upper body, a submission can be exposed. All these set things you're going to be able to do in this series. I feel like I did an amazing job at teaching you these concepts, and I really, really, really can't wait for you to see what we've put together here. Again, collar sleeve, why I love collar sleeve is it's a position that advanced, high-level, flexible guys could do. And non-flexible, old-school people. I don't see old-school in jiu-jitsu anymore, by the way. I think I'm honestly an old-school person now because I love all the old-school fundamental positions because that's how I grew up learning jiu-jitsu. I love the modern jiu-jitsu and the old-school, but I just see it as one big, broad type of jiu-jitsu. But I feel like this collar sleeve will kind of blend in the old school and the modern people. Even though I don't consider old school people old school, I just think that they think of jiu-jitsu a little more conceptually and they think of it more in set ways, while the modern people just see it more as cool moves, right? So I think that the old school people have a deeper approach, and I feel like I'm able to blend in the old school people's minds and the modern people's minds together because I'm able to see both sides and I'm able to be in both, So I feel like this DVD brings together everyone. And I feel like that's why this is such a cool series. I really love collar sleeve. It's like one of my favorite guards. I love all guards now, but collar sleeve is definitely one of my favorite. I remember my sister was always the best at collar sleeve whenever I would train with her and everything. And I even remember when we were kids, my sister would always beat all the boys she was fighting. She used to use scissor sweeps, some collar sleeve on all the boys, and it's such a cool thing, I grew up doing collar sleeve, and it's a big part of me. I've done jiu-jitsu for 20 years, and all the guards I have a different emotional connection to, kind of, because I've done them all 30 years. I have love-hate relationships with them. Some guards I'll be angry at some points in my life. Sometimes I'll love them, It just depends on the phases I went through, but I play almost every guard, and I love all the guards because, again, I don't see them as guards anymore. I just see them as rules of body manipulation, okay? So what I want you to learn in this series is going to be the broadness of these concepts that you're going to be applicable everywhere. You're going to learn the new world of, instead of my arm being posted, how to bend the arm, how when the arm is bent, how to wedge and then straighten the arm. That's going to be the main thing you're going to learn in this series. This is going to be the first world of collar and sleeve control. There's two worlds to collar and sleeve control: outside control and inside control. Outside control is going to be what we cover in this series, including modified collar sleeve. Inside control will be a part of the next series, okay? Then these two parts of collar sleeve are going to help us tremendously in attacking our opponent and eventually giving us leg exposure, eventually giving us so many options, okay? That is what this is all about. In this series, you learn about manual spine manipulation opposed to the anchor. Okay, you're gonna learn that the anchor versus manual in a certain way in this series, but there's another way you're going to learn in the next series. But I'm just so excited that you guys are learning this material from me, and I really, really, really know that you're going to get a lot out of it. Okay, I'm gonna be here to answer questions always for everyone. If you have any questions, please ask on the BJJ Fanatics Facebook page. Message me on Instagram. I'm constantly filming right now, but I always get to all the questions, Thank you guys again so much for the opportunity for me to share my jiu-jitsu with you and my findings. I'm like a scientist because all I do is study this stuff all day, I'm just studying the body. I'm just studying all the movements, and it's just so much fun for me thinking of jiu-jitsu like this. I'm not this freak athlete. I'm not physically strong. I'm just a nerd that likes studying positions and understanding the correlations of the body. And I feel like if I'm able to do it, I feel like anyone will be able to do it if they have these key concepts and they understand them, okay? I spent years working on all these things, so now you guys don't have to, and it's just going to be so much fun for you to see jiu-jitsu like this. And I want you guys to have fun learning this. So I hope you have like a buddy that you're working with. You guys work these moves together. You're drilling them together so you could feel the top versus the bottom. And you know how I always say in all my other videos, if you want to actually master a move, it's actually teaching the move to somebody, actually feeling the move from somebody. That will give you full mastery of the move. And of course, as well as you practicing the move. But the deepness of both people practicing it will be significantly helpful in your learning. So I really recommend that you have a drilling partner that you guys can both work on this together. Okay. And I'm here for you guys as well. So please ask me questions. And I'm really excited for you guys to learn this material. Thank you again so much for this opportunity. And I can't wait for you guys to see it. Let's get to it. Us. Okay guys, so now we're going to begin learning about collar sleeve. So the first question is, what is collar sleeve? Collar sleeve is when I'm playing guard here. I have a collar grip on my opponent, a cross collar, and I'm holding my opponent's sleeve on this side, okay? Why is this important is I'm able to, when I'm holding a collar, as you learn from all my other series, if you're not familiar, there's different rules that we do with the collar. The collar is a frame. The collar is a spine misalignment grip. The collar, I could pull her shoulders forward. There's many different applications I can use with the collar, okay? So for now, we're just going to, and I'm going to show you multiple during this series.
Can I ask you a question quickly
yes.
just before we start everything? Why are you grabbing the cross collar, not the same side collar?
There's many applications with the same side collar that we could do with collar sleeve, but it's not as much control because for me to do collar sleeve, I'm trying to bring the shoulder forward, right?
Okay.
If I'm holding this collar, bring your shoulder back and tuck your arm in. You see the difference? So if I'm holding this collar, I'd be playing more on the elbow. So then I'm able to monitor this shoulder. You see? That's why I'm grabbing the cross collar in this sleeve because you see how I'm able to bring your shoulder forward. That's going to be one of the main objectives when I'm playing collar sleeve, okay? That's why we're dominating one side. It's the theory in jiu-jitsu of when you dominate one side of the person, it makes it very difficult for the person to move because you have one side of them completely dominated. So when I'm holding this collar in this sleeve, notice how I'm bringing one side of her body to me, right? Okay, so this collar grip, just for now, we understand that it's a mechanism of framing and our fort. What is our frame and fort? If you watch my De La Riva DVD, then you actually understand this already, but I have to keep re-saying these things for people that haven't seen that, right? What is it? A frame is anything I put on her body that makes distance from her. So for her to pass my guard, I have 0 frames, go to mount. You see? So come back. When I make 1 frame on her body, now go to the mount. Go square in front of me, like a wall. You see? This is the first frame I have on her body. A frame stops her from going into me. You see? My goal in guard is to establish as many frames as I can on my opponent. Why is that? Because the more frames I have on my opponent, the way more difficult it is for my opponent to pass my guard. Because she has to address each frame that I make on her body. Okay? So let's say I have one frame here and I have one frame here. For her to pass my guard, she has to remove the frame on her leg. She has to remove this frame and go around it somehow, addressing my frame to pass my guard, right? So why I love collar sleeve is collar sleeve gives us an opportunity to create a lot of frames on her body, creating this overall fort that's super strong. What is a fort? A fort is the accumulation of frames on my opponent's body. So whenever I make my frames on the person's body, I establish my fort. Once I have my fort and I'm positionally correct, for her to do anything, she has to address my frames. If she removes one thing, then that's addressing one of my frames on her body, right? And my objective is, whenever I lose any of my frames, I use my other frames to regain that frame. In our rules of frames and fort, right? And typically, when we establish a correct fort on her body, so strong that if she tries to move, it gives us an attack that we want, okay? So that's our objective in collar sleeve. So, like my sister said before, I'm grabbing cross collar for this series because we're trying to dominate one side of her body. If I was playing this collar, it would be better if I was holding the elbow, okay? And applications with the elbow and this will be very good as well. But for this series, we're only going to be primarily focused on the cross collar and the sleeve. When I have the cross collar and sleeve here, there's going to be two worlds for us that you're going to learn in this series. The two worlds are going to be inside control versus outside control. So the first part of the series, my opponent's arm is going to be inside my body.
You need to sit down or stay?
You can stay on your knees, because in this series, you're always going to be on your knees.
Okay.
In collar sleeve, there's going to be 3 different parts. One of the parts is going to be the opponent on their knees. The other part is when I'm starting to put pressure, she's going to use one of her knees to stop the pressure. And then the other part is going to be she's going to stand up. Or she's going to be in a squatted motion, but both her feet are going to be up, you see? So it's the same thing. Those are going to be the 3 things that we're going to eventually cover in this series overall. But for now, what we're doing is, I'm going to be here in collar sleeve, and there's going to be 2 worlds. One, her arms inside my body. The other world that you're going to learn later on in the series is I have inside control. My knee is inside her body, you see? Inside control will help us in certain scenarios, but I'm going to teach you how to play efficiently with outside control of my leg versus inside control, okay? But let's get back to what is collar sleeve. When I'm in collar sleeve, I'm holding the cross collar, and the thing I want you to think about in application of the cross collar grip, the first thing I need you to think about is the frame, right? Whenever I grab the cross collar, I say this in every one of my DVDs, but I have to keep repeating it. Soft tissue versus bone. If I grab soft tissue, come into me, she's going to collapse right into my hand because there's no frame. When I grab directly on the collarbone, come into me, you can't, right? Because it's directly on the bone. So I created this frame. So everyone that plays collar sleeve, it's super, super, super important that you know that we're always on this bone, in this line of her shoulder here on this bone. So whenever she puts pressure into me, she can't. This is so important in application of straight arm, any type of frame. This is so important, right? And then what you're going to also see is this, changing her head this direction, misalignment of the spine, right? But for now, this is what we're focused on. Then when I'm holding the sleeve, look how I'm going to be holding the sleeve. I'm going to have my fingers on the sleeve like so. I'm going to be holding here. And there's going to be many different ways I hold the sleeve and use it. Sometimes I'll have a grip that I call the wing grip, where I open my elbow like this. Sometimes I'll be tucking on top of her wrist like this, so then her wrist is stuck. Other times I'll be even just here punching up with my elbow so that her hand can't touch the floor. There's many different ways I'll be using the sleeve in this series, and you'll see.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So you explained why you're using the cross instead of the same side.
Yes.
How come you're using the sleeve grip and not this grip, like what you were saying that we're going to do before?
I can use the sleeve and elbow here. This is also great control. But the problem is whenever I'm holding your elbow and sleeve, the lower part of your arm is free. So you can start going to like this part of my leg here, you see.
Oh, okay.
You see how the lower part of your arm is free? So I prefer, and it's way easier to initially be with the sleeve, but it's not wrong to go to the elbow. You definitely can in other series. Even going triangles like this is great. Okay, but what I want to discuss now is the rules of balance, like I did in De La Riva. So the rules of balance when the person was standing, I went over very much in my De La Riva instructional. Now I'm going to talk about the rules of balance with my person on the knees. Okay, so just stay here. When the person's on the knees, one thing I want you to think about is two things. One is going to be her weight on her legs. If her body exceeds her knees, so her head exceeds her knees, she's going to have to use her arms to post her body, right? She has to use her upper body to post once she loses balance this direction. Every time I make her head and her legs exceed, she begins to fall this way as well. Again, has to use her arms to balance. This is going to be very important in this series because whenever she has weight on her legs, she's going to posture. She takes weight off of her arms when she postures. When I break her posture down, she puts weight on her arms. For me to attack a submission, she has to put weight on her arms, right? And the more weight that's on her arms, the easier it will be for me to attack a submission. The same application will be when I'm going for a submission and she defends closing her elbow. Now, we're going to learn the rules of balance on the side of the person. So, the rules of balance forward and back. Once her head exceeds her knees, she has to post her arms. Once her body starts going behind her butt, she has to post her arms. Now, the last thing will be the rules of balance exactly like standing. So, what we learned in De La Riva was this. When you're standing up and you make someone's weight go on the same side leg and could you move out of this? The same side leg, same side arm, the person falls. Same side leg, same side arm, the person falls. Okay, so this is going to be the same thing when you're on your knees. So every time you're going for a submission on the upper body and they put their weight on their legs, I'm closing my elbow. If we make all their weight go on the same side of their body, look what just happened. All my weight just went to this leg and my elbow. I fall. It's the same exact rules as if the person's standing up, you see. It's just a different place because I'm on my knees opposed to standing. But the application's the same. So I think it's so important understanding this because we have many attacks in color sleeve, but you just never know when to do any of them. Now you'll actually understand that whenever you're pulling the upper body forward, I start closing my elbows. Look at my body. Now I can do the side-to-side rules of balance, opposed to when I'm here and you start pulling me forward, now I'm posting. Now you can attack my upper body. Now I'm posturing, but you're pushing me back. When you push me back, what do I have to do? I have to open my leg. You see I just opened my leg up. And now what I just did with my arms. My arms and upper body are exposed into a submission. So, in this series, these four things of balance are going to be the most important part in this series, okay? So, again, my body's here. My head exceeds my knees. My weight goes to my upper body. Again, whenever the weight's on the upper body, what does that mean? Submission exposure. We're going to learn in this series, again, like in De La Riva, the rules of posting. Every time I bring my shoulder back, my arm straightens. We're going to see that in effect in this series. So before in other series, our whole goal was to bend the person's arm. In this series, we're actually going to be pushing the shoulder back instead of forward. People are going to be bringing their shoulder forward, and we're going to learn to push the shoulder back and straighten the arm because they're going to lose the connection of their elbow to their body, aka they're going to be putting weight on their upper body, you see. All these different concepts I'm going to need you guys to have a deep understanding of before we do any of these positions, because once you understand this, it'll be so easy. You'll actually know everything that we're doing. You see, so every time we're here, like we learned in De La Riva, come here now, the post. Just going around. The rules of posting someone's arm. Just stay here. Yeah. Whenever I bring someone's shoulder forward, their elbow collapses, right? And they fall down. But what you're going to learn in this series, we didn't do this as much in De La Riva. Close your elbow. Whenever the elbow is closed, just like we were able to bend the arm, we could straighten the arm. We could push the elbow, we could push the shoulder down and isolate the arm. Look how I pushed the shoulder back and the arm forward. Look how the arm's straightened now. And what does that mean when the arm straightens? That means that she has a post again. And what does that mean when she has a post? Weight transferred from her legs to her arm. And what do we know about the rules of like attacking submissions on the upper body? Whenever there's weight on her upper body, we can expose a submission. So that is what we're doing in this section of the series. We're going to be learning how to master bringing the person's weight onto their arm. And then what we're going to learn eventually is when we try bringing the weight onto their arm and they close their elbow and posture up because they have to, look at the weight of their balance. They fall, you see? So the rules of balance of those 4 things are going to be so common in this series. You're going to see all 4 of them, okay? And I just need you guys to really have a deep understanding of this concept alone, okay? And again, we're going to have a really deep understanding in this series about elbow placement on my body. We're going to have a deep understanding of how her arm is straight here and misaligning her elbow with her shoulder. Once we misalign her elbow with her shoulder, keep your elbow closed. Keep your elbow closed, and when I do this. Once I do this, look how she cannot keep her elbow closed. You see? So it's kind of the opposite of De La Riva if you think about it, right? Because De La Riva, we were learning a lot about posting, right? When the person's posting on us, keeping their arms straight. And we learned how to bend the elbow, right? Now what we're going to learn is when the elbow is closed, how to straighten the arm, you see? You see how our elbows align with our arm? We're going to learn how to alter the alignment. We're going to learn how to pull it forward, and look how the arm is straight again. Once the arm is straight, look how her body can come into me. And look how her shoulder is back, you see? And then when I bring the shoulder forward, and I try to bring the shoulder forward, look how our elbow is closed. We can attack a sweep on this side because the rules of balance. Whenever she's postured, we're going to learn that when I'm playing collar sleeve, there'll be many obstacles like breaking the grips. If she breaks my grip, we'll learn what she exposes when she breaks my grip, aka this part of her arm. We're going to learn to think about attacking the arm in 2 different sections of her body. This part versus this part. If she closes her elbow here, this part will be free to move around. And then we'll be able to scoop under her elbow, creating wedges. What is a wedge? A wedge will be when I'm able to create something from blocking her elbow from going into a spot, you see? The more I can create a wedge, the more she can't close her elbow. What does that mean for us? The more I'm able to straighten her arm away from her body. Okay. All these concepts, like I keep saying, we're going to see more and more and more. And that is what we're mostly doing right now. Again, let's recap the rules of balance. She's postured up. Her arms are like this. If I make her head go in front of her body, she's going to post on her arms. Once she posts on her arms, a large percentage of the weight on her legs will transfer to her arms, giving us an upper body attack, a submission. We're here. As I try to pull her arms forward, she postures up. Once she postures up, I push her back. For her to balance, she has to open her knees and then put weight back forward. Put weight back forward because you're going to fall, right?
Sorry. Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
You see? Now once she puts weight back forward, upper body is exposed, or she closes her elbow. Now look at her side. Look how there's no weight on this side. Look. She falls. That is what everything you're going to learn in this series is going to be about. The balance, the 4 points of the 4 center points. Forward, back, side to side. Collar grip, always on the collarbone. There'll be exceptions, like if we're going for a loop choke, misaligning the spine, pulling the shoulders forward, hanging. There'll be many different exceptions here, okay? But that's the first premise of how we're holding the collar grip, okay? I'm going to go into now after this, how to place my foot on her armpit. That's going to be super important. But before we do that, I just want to explain, there's going to be many different hip angles that I go to, and there's reasons why I'm on each hip. There's going to be many different spots my foot will be on her body, and we're going to explain how the person could defend and how we're going to counter the defense, okay? And another thing I want to talk about, for me, when I started doing collar sleeve, I really had a hard time because everyone I watched do collar sleeve, I saw how much strength it required. I saw that everyone just pulling as hard as they can. And I never was strong, I never felt strong doing this. So I always felt like very weak when I did collar sleeve. So it made me have to perfect how to do this without strength, And it's all about body placement. It's all about positioning your body. And you're going to see now that you're going to be able to play collar sleeve without feeling like you're using strength. Okay, that's my whole goal of this series. Because anyone could teach you collar sleeve and say, I'm gonna hold the collar in the sleeve and I'm just gonna pull the sleeve. Yeah, but what if your pulling is not strong? What if I can't pull in? What if I'm weak? Then what do? You're going to learn what to do. You're going to learn that we don't need to have that pulling strength. We don't need to go to the gym and lift. We could angle around it, we could work around that. We don't need so much brute strength to do this position. Like I always thought you needed when I was younger, And I'm going to show you that now. And I also want you to understand, everyone that likes playing other guards, which hopefully you like playing other guards, how important collar sleeve is as a connection and in between to get to other guards. X guard, De La Riva, every other guard collar sleeve is great for. Why is it great for it? Because every time you're in collar sleeve, what are you doing? You're pulling the upper body forward. Every time I pull the upper body forward, what is she going to do? She's going to give me legs. Every time I get legs, I can go into all my leg attacks, which would be De La Riva, X guard, many different guards. Because what is the rule in Jiu-Jitsu? The rule is there's two worlds in Jiu-Jitsu. Attacking the upper body versus the legs. Every time you attack one of them, the opponent will give you the other. If I attack, just stand up. Bring your upper body forward. If I attack her upper body here, what is she going to do? She's going to posture and give her legs. And now look, I have leg attacks, De La Riva, X guard. So this is so important in understanding like the overall broadness of collar sleeve, how we can use it in so many different spots in Jiu-Jitsu. And that's why we're starting on the knees, because the mastery of the knees is the most important part of collar sleeve. Once we learn how to do this on the knees, it'll be so easy when a person has one leg up, the other leg up, because they're going to even have less weight on their body, and it'll be so easy to do all our concepts that you're going to learn in this series in all those spots, okay? So I think that this is like one of the most important foundations of a guard, besides closed guard. I think closed guard and collar sleeve are probably the two most important foundations of a guard. Like if I had a student, I would just have them learn closed guard and collar sleeve if I had to choose two guards. Because if they know those two, they could control anyone. And collar sleeve is amazing for getting the closed guard also, So we're going to get into the next part now, but I just wanted to give you an overall picture of what is collar sleeve, what are we doing with collar sleeve, why are we doing it, okay? And you're going to see that there's many different foot placements, all these different body angles that I'm going to do, but the overall concept is going to remain the same. Because what is a concept? A concept isn't a move. A concept is an overall picture of what you're going to do. So I might do many different moves, but the concept will remain the same every time. That is what you're going to see in this series. You might have different angle changes, you might have all this, but everything is going to remain the same. The rules that we're going to follow, everything. Just body positioning will be altered slightly, but our concepts, our rules, everything will remain the same. So now we're going to continue on to the next part, which is going to be foot placement on her body. So previously I just discussed like the significance of collar sleeve, what we're doing, like some of the rules of balance that we're going to learn in collar sleeve. Now I'm going to start talking about body positioning. Like I've explained so many times that in order for our fort to be sufficient, our body positioning with our frames have to be the strongest possible. Once we position our body correctly, our frames become significantly stronger. And you're going to learn in this series that the angle of my hip is going to be everything in collar sleeve. There will be times I'm on one hip versus the other, which I'll explain in future segments. But right now what I want to go over is where my foot will be behind her arm and also where my forward foot will be in this series, okay? So I'm going to be here on bottom. I'm going to be in collar sleeve over here. And what you're going to see is my back leg. So a lot of people, when they teach collar sleeve, they say to put their foot on top of the shoulder here. I feel that if my foot's on top of the shoulder here, I require a lot of strength to play collar sleeve. And also, I give her the option of circling around my body with her arm. Go down, like circle your arm. Yeah, so go on bottom, I'll explain it. When a person has collar sleeve here, and the person puts their foot on the shoulder, look how easy it is for me to bring my shoulder forward and circle my arm. Come back. If she put her foot on the lower part of my arm, look how easy it is to go here and circle my arm either way. So there's two circles when you're playing color sleeve that you have to be aware of, okay? The first one is here, circling around. The second one, here, pushing down the length, like so, okay? Both will be very, like a lot of people will be trying both of them when you're doing color sleeve. And when you're on the shoulder, look how easy it is for me to use my elbow here to put pressure and circle the arm. It's not wrong. You'll see many high-level people that are physically very strong doing the foot on the shoulder like this because they have such a strong connection already with my sleeve and collar like this that they're able to stay here. But if my elbow was in and you're here, it's so easy for me to like be strong now. Again. You see how easy it is for me to remove it? Now, there'll also be other, when she has inside control, that will change a little bit because she's then now using it as an anchor to go around me. This will be fine. But initial body positioning of collar sleeve, when she's here, it's easy for me to circle, you see. And if she was on my bicep, it's easy for me to circle my arm as well. Because now my shoulder can come forward and I can move around. So here I have my elbow to move forward. Here I have my shoulder to move forward and circle around. So where is the perfect spot in collar sleeve? The perfect initial spot in collar sleeve will be in a particular spot on my armpit. Why on my armpit? Because when you put your foot right in the middle of the armpit, notice I'm not going to be able to go over or under. This exact spot keeps my shoulder back and in a way that I can't go either direction. This is where we're going to target when we're here, and I'm going to explain to you how to even place your foot here. Once you get this connection in the armpit, and now she's in collar sleeve, look how difficult it's going to be for me to move my arm. It's extremely difficult. Look, I can't come forward. I can't go over. And what does that mean? That means that this frame on her body that she has on me is extremely efficient. And every time she has one frame super efficient and I try to remove it, I compromise my fort on top. Because what is top and bottom? Top and bottom are identical in Jiu-Jitsu. I have my fort on her body. She has her forts on my body. We both have our frames on each other. So I'll be here. I'll be holding her leg here and here. This is my overall fort. When she goes here and I try to remove one of her forts, one of her frames from my body, look how I just compromised one of mine. And now she can expose something on me, right? So let's see again the position. So you'll see people teach collar sleeve all these different ways. And they're not wrong. It just might be a different hip angle. There's many different scenarios. Like if I'm standing in De La Riva and she has her foot on my bicep and she's in De La Riva here. If she's on this hip and she's able to keep her leg stuck like this, she could be strong, right? If she's here and she's already anchoring my leg and she has my arm all the way up, or my arm's already here, this is very strong. But for initial collar sleeve placement, I want you guys to focus on this armpit spot. So now let me go on bottom. Now I'm going to explain how they get there. So how are we going to get to this armpit spot? Let's see. So what I want you guys to notice is the length of my leg. If I go to collar sleeve on this side of my body, and I stretch, now let's take your leg away. Notice how my leg is going to be very short. So just swim your arm around it. Yeah. You see? If I'm here. If I go to this hip and I put my leg here, look how long my leg is. Do you feel like my leg's significantly longer?
Yeah, way longer.
You agree with that? Yes?
Yeah.
Because when I'm here, look how my leg, I straighten it. Look how it's easy for her to move. Look when I go to this hip. Look how long my leg is. If I go completely to this hip, look again, I just made my hip shorter because now a part of my leg is on the mat. So the perfect hip placement to initially get the collar sleeve is my body's square with her. I'm going to angle my hip slightly to the side. I'm going to be on my right hip slightly. If I go too much, the portion of my butt is on the floor. Now I lose length in my leg. So I go slightly to the side. I'm going to place my foot right in her armpit. But look what I'm going to do. When I place my foot in the armpit, I want you to notice my toes, how they go right here. Now I want you to try to remove my body. Up and down. Up, down. It's difficult, right?
Yeah, very difficult.
You see? Now when I have the collar sleeve, because I was doing it without hands, now I'm trying to move. You see, but you're standing now, right?
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. You still couldn't, though.
No.
You You see, go under the leg. You see? And again, what you're going to see is when she's doing all this fight on my foot that's perfectly placed, she won't be able to remove it, and she's going to give me all my attacks. That is why this is so important. So the drill is going to be how you get the collar sleeve is like this. I'm going to be here. I'm going to bring my body slightly at an angle. Right now, my head is aligned with her head. The angle of my head to her body is going to be extremely significant in the series because certain attacks, I'm going to be aligned my head with her shoulder. And why is that? Her spine is going to be misaligned with her body. So what are our rules of balance in jiu-jitsu? Every time her spine is misaligned with her body and she faces me, she loses balance. You see, she has no balance when she does that. When she's aligned with me here, her head is aligned with my body, she has balance. She's strong because her spine is directly aligned with her body. You see, when I am aligned here and she faces me, she will fall. You see, which we'll learn later on. But for now, all we're seeing is body positioning while I'm square with her. I'm just going to move my hips slightly to the side. So I go 1, I put my foot on her shoulder. Now I have my foot on the collar sleeve. And now you're just going to hold the collar. And for the first one, we're just going to keep our foot on her hip like this. There's going to be 2 ways that we play outside, arm inside collar sleeve, outside leg. And it's going to be either foot on the hip or foot on the shoulder. Both will be extremely significant in this series, and you'll learn when to do one or the other, okay? I love this half lasso on the shoulder. I also play on the foot on the hip as well, and you'll learn why we do either or. But this is going to be the first part of this series of when her arm is inside my body. Here and here. But this back leg, all we're going to learn is first we stay on this hip to connect our foot into her armpit like so. I'm going to have the collar grip. And now what you're going to notice is I'm able to change hips to this side once I get the perfect connection. Now try to take your leg out, your arm out. Do you feel like you can?
No.
Hey, look, I'm not using any strength. Go. Now you're literally trying to move away.
Sorry.
No, but the collar grip keeps her stuck here. That's what I'm saying. But even as you moved away, if you stay in this line, can you take out your leg?
No.
You see? That's what I'm trying to say. It's all body positioning. The more sticky your foot is to her shoulder, the more effective you'll be in collar sleeve. Because what are we trying to do in collar sleeve? We're trying to bring this shoulder back, and we're trying to bring this shoulder forward, right? That's our whole goal. If I have no connection to her shoulder, bring that shoulder forward. Now look how the shoulder goes back. Look how I lose everything in collar sleeve, okay? So I'm going to place my foot right inside her armpit, like this area right here. I'm going to be in this spot. I connect it first on this side. I have the cross collar. I come back to this side. Now try to move your foot, your arm, sorry. You won't be able to. So the first drill you guys are going to have to do now is this. You're going to be in collar sleeve. You're going to start, you can even start in closed guard. No problem. We're going to have the cross collar. We're going to open our leg. I'm just going to put one foot on her hip. I'm going to throw my leg over. I'm going to move my body slightly to this side of her body. You see my hip? First is square. I'm just going to move it slightly to the other part of her body here. Once I do this, I'm going to put my foot on her shoulder. I can throw it over, or I can just go under, right to her shoulder. Once I do this, I range my knee like this, and now I change my hip back to this side. The next thing I'm going to discuss now. How do I keep perfect positioning with my leg? The perfect positioning of my leg is going to be like this. Notice this leg. If my leg is open a little bit, circle your foot. If my leg is closed a little bit, go over. No, over, you do this. Here, and now push down my leg. You see? If my knee is exactly aligned with my head, exactly aligned, now do either or. Look at my head, how it's exactly aligned. So this is what I'm doing. Look at my head and look at my knee. My knee to my head. My head and knee are exactly aligned with each other. This is so important. It's like De La Riva, stand up please. When I align my foot on her shoulder, bend down your arm please. When I align my foot with my head, my foot is the same line as my head, and then I go De La Riva. I have the perfect De La Riva. When I have the perfect collar sleeve, now go on your knees. My head is aligned with my knee. Exactly the same concept. That's so important that I make my knee and head the same line. Now, she will have very difficult time removing up or down. And all I'm doing here is another rule in collar sleeve. I never straighten my leg completely. If I straighten my leg completely, look how I lose tension. She could swim under. You see? Every time I straighten my leg, she could circle off because I have no tension on her. So I'm always keeping my leg flexed, not using strength. I'm just keeping it tense. What would you consider this? Just tense, tight? Like I'm not really straightening it. I'm not pulling in. I'm just like
keeping tension, yeah.
I'm just keeping tension where it's like a table, right? Like it's like a table, kind of like you lean into it. It's like I have a table here. Like it's leaving tension. But what all I'm doing is this: my head and my knee are the same line. I'm looking at my head. I'm looking at my knee, sorry. You see, my head and knee are exactly the same line. So now if she goes to circle in, we're fine. If she circles out, we're fine. As long as I keep my knee exactly the same line as my head. Okay. Now we're going to learn in the next chapter attacks from here. And they're going to be either my foot on her hip or ribs in this range. ASIS is going to be relevant here. Or in the half lasso, where my foot is on top of her shoulder. So those are the two types of collar sleeves we'll play in the family of outside control, okay? Because what is outside control versus inside control? Inside control is when my leg is inside her body. Now I have inside control of her body. When her arm's inside my body, I have outside control, okay? That is going to be the two separate types of collar sleeve that we're going to learn. And we're also going to learn, besides changing angles and sides, we're going to learn supine versus seated position. So sometimes in collar sleeve, you'll see me like this, sitting up in collar sleeve. And you'll learn why I'm sitting up opposed to on my back, supine. So you're going to learn both variations and options as well, just different bases. I'm just giving you, like, again, an overview, but I need you guys to really focus because on this detail of keeping my foot on the shoulder. Because if you could keep the foot on the shoulder, the biggest problem in collar sleeve that you'll have is when you can't. And that's because you didn't understand body positioning.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
This might be, like, going too far. How come you're not putting it on the hip?
You can put it on the hip, and that also proves why we go to this spot. So if I keep my foot in collar sleeve on your hip, try to step over if I'm here. Just step over my leg. You see how it's easy?
Yes.
Look, step over. Now watch, I'm going to go to the hip, the same exact angle as the collar sleeve like this. Remove my foot from your body.
No, I can't.
You see, so that angle of my hip makes my leg the longest. So it makes it very difficult for her to remove my foot from her ASIS. You see. This is why we're angling our body this way, because our leg is the longest. And once we have the correct body positioning, I'm able to go back to the other side and do things. In this series, we'll actually learn when we cannot keep the foot on the shoulder what to do. We're going to learn there's 3 different spots of collar sleeve that I play. One will be here on her shoulder. One will be hooking her armpit like this. And it'll be playing the same exact way. The third will be my leg right below her ribs, like right here. All 3 will have application later on, okay? But again, what I need you guys to understand, whichever of those 3 that I'm playing, my knee is never buried. If I bury my knee like this, smash past me. Look. Now I'm going to make my knee the same line as my head. Smash past me. Look, my knee the same line as my head. Look, smash past me. Look, I'm just keeping my knee the same line as my head. It's impossible. She cannot smash past me if my knee is the same line as my head. Even if I'm like this, smash past me. She's trying to remove my knee from the angle of my head now, you see? That was smart.
Thank you.
You see, so she's trying, so every time my knee is the line of our head, she will not be able to bury my leg, and my body positioning will be correct. But everything we do in collar sleeve, we learn on the, we set up on this side, and then we go to the other side. Or we could even set up square. But once you learn this positioning of your foot, I think that you'll feel super strong. And you don't even have to set it up on the other side necessarily. You just have to, I think that is the best way to learn setting up on the other side. Because on this side is where you have the longest length in your leg, and I'm able to place my foot perfectly. You see? So all we're going to do is this. I'm going to be in closed guard. I'm going to be here. I have both sleeves. I'm going to step on the hip. I'm going to throw my leg over here. If I need to, for someone that isn't flexible, I can back up a little bit, which actually is better because notice when I did it over here, her weight's still on her upper body, so you're posturing up. You see, opposed to if I'm here, her weight's on her arms now, and then I go here. So this is actually ideally better. I could go here or here. I'm gonna keep my foot in her armpit, shoulder right here. I'm gonna grab the collar. I'm gonna move my body this direction. I'm gonna keep my knee the same line as my head, and now I'm gonna be in collar sleeve. Try to go up and down to remove the arm. This is how we're going to learn the body positioning. And again, if you learn anything from this series, this is going to be one of the most important things. I need you guys to master how I'm placing my foot under her armpit. This is so important. Her going up, I have a connection to her. Her going down, I have a connection. And you'll actually see in the series that when I'm doing omoplata, sometimes I'll remove my foot from the armpit. Only when her weight's already on her upper body, because now I can step on her shoulder to bury her down more. Exposing this arm more. Okay, we're gonna learn that later on. But for now, we're learning body positioning, and how we're gonna learn it is my knee and head have to stay in this line always. Knee and head. First rule. Second rule, I'm never straightening my leg. If I straighten my leg, I have zero tension on her. She could circle her leg. Yes. If I'm here, you would circle. If I'm like this, you would go over, right? No, you bring your hand over, and now, yes. Right, so if I'm like this, you, yes. Here, yes.
We'll just push down.
Because you have nothing stopping you from bringing your body in, you see? Okay, so that's the first thing we're gonna learn. Again, this is not wrong to do this. If we get our body on top of the person, they're already laying down or leaning, and I'm able to do it, cool. But if you initially start in collar sleeve with the elbow down and you go here, it requires a lot of strength that I don't want to use. You know, I don't want to use any strength when I'm doing any position. So the perfect body positioning is my foot right here, my head here, my foot and knee aligned, my head aligned. I connect my foot like this. Circle your leg, circle your arm, sorry. Here, over, down. You see, she can't circle, okay? And then what we're going to learn is how I'm gripping her body with U-grips. And I'm going to be explaining that next, okay? But again, for now, all we're doing is focusing on this foot placement. So we start in closed guard. You could drill it like this. You can start in closed guard, or you can just start like this. You're just gonna back up here. All you're gonna do is put your foot right in the armpit here. I go on this hip just slightly. I place my foot here, and she tries to remove it. Up, down, everything here. I'm going to be teaching you a modified collar sleeve as well, which will teach you if you cannot keep your foot on the shoulder. And I play it all the time here, and you'll learn why, as well as here, okay? Both are going to be totally fine, and we're going to learn how to use all of them. But the only thing I need you guys to see is I'm never, unless I have a certain frame here, I'm never playing collar sleeve with my knee down like this, because now it's smashing me. You see? So that's super important, okay? And we're going to be going on to the next thing now. Just again, body placement. I'm here. I place my body, this line. I put my foot on the shoulder. Now I try to remove it up and down. Exactly. Okay? And now once I have this placement, I can go back to this side if I want. We're going to be learning now the two spots, the two families of outside leg control. Foot on the hip, foot on the shoulder. Okay? Whoosh.